I told you it was going to happen. I told you. And I didn't expect you to listen to the Saturday program. I get it. You have better things to do, but realize this. This is the beast and the beauty. This is Panthers on ice. And Bryce Young was dancing like it was his wedding against that Falcons team. And there is no difference between Bryce Young's wedding and his performance against the Falcons. You know why? It's the best he's going to look for the rest of his life. It's manicured. The nails are clipped. He even grabs Canales by the arm and spins him around. It's all beautiful on the Panthers quarterback's wedding day against the Falcons. It's amazing. It really is unbelievable. It's the most predictable thing in the world. This guy goes against the Falcons and magic happens. Magic happens when he faces that team. And I pulled the numbers here. I got ahead of this because I know people are going to extrapolate a lot from this game, myself included. And I do have a little more confidence in Bryce Young after a 450-yard, 3-touchdown performance against Atlanta. I do. However, I'm still waiting for a larger sample size. And it took this long. It took 11 games into the season to get a game where the quarterback really elevated you. In fact, elevated the product so much that the coach made some big mistakes. Canales made some big mistakes in that game. Evero is excluded from that evaluation. I don't think this was Canales' best game. It might have been one of his worst games of the season, other than the New England Patriots loss. Still, Young elevated it. Young made some big throws. Now, granted, Natrone Brooks, the Falcons corner, he was the leading wide receiver for the Panthers on the day. Oh my gosh, his PFF grade's going to be like a -12. I'm not joking. He fumbled the kickoff, which gave life to the Panthers offense in the second half. He gave up about 200 yards. I think he got beat so bad. At the end of the game, they were putting Caden Ellis on D-Mac. They're like, we can't even put this guy on the field. I mean, that was one of the worst individual performances I've ever seen by a player. But still, you got to give the credit to the quarterback. He looked great against the blitz today. There were a couple mishaps against the blitz, but by and large, he was good. He threw the ball down the field, 7 passes of 20-plus yards. I think that's approaching his total for the season. It might be like half of his total for the season. Bryce Young throwing the ball down the field against the Falcons. He gets credit. Yes, the receivers were open, way more open than they were against the Saints. He gets credit. I think the passing game in general looked good. T-Mac had his best game as a Panther. Coker, Leggett, they got involved. Leggett, I will say, though, it never looks easy when he catches the ball. It always looks like it could be dropped on that long 36-yard touchdown that Young threw, connecting with Xavier Leggett, where Xavier Leggett got a lot of separation. I thought he was going to drop it. The ball's just sort of fumbling around, and I'm like, oh gosh, man. Oh gosh, please don't drop it, X. But let's go to the meat and potatoes of this conversation, which is the quarterback. Here are Bryce Young's numbers on the season. He averages a 79.7 rating, 168 yards, 1.3 touchdowns. That includes rushing touchdowns. Against the Falcons, his career numbers, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 93.54 rating. He literally is 50% better against the Falcons than he is other teams. It's unbelievable. It literally is, it amazes me that this guy is the cyanide of those dirty birds, that the Falcons cannot figure out Bryce Young. And that's the other reason I take this game with a grain of salt, because I knew it was predictable. It was predictable. It was predictable that Bryce Young was going to have this type of game. And last season, the last game of 2024, was the game that we all extrapolated everything from. The 5-touchdown game that Young had against the Falcons, that was the catalyst to all the conversations being, oh, Bryce Young's a top 15 quarterback. Bryce Young's going to elevate the Panthers in 2025. Bryce Young's going to be the one to lead them to the playoffs. Bryce Young, Bryce Young, Bryce Young. You get to the 2025 season, what happens? The quarterback's nowhere to be found. He catfished all of us like a bad Tinder profile. We thought he was a 10. We thought he was a 9. and he was a 4. What the heck, Bryce? That's what happened last season. I'm not going to take much from this game. I want to see it withstand the trial of time. Still, the sample size on Bryce Young is large. He kills the Falcons. He's a bird killer. He's the opposite of a bird watcher. Instead of standing there with binoculars, he points his right arm and rifles those birds down to the tee of 450 yards. Bryce Young throwing on Sunday against the Falcons. People aren't going to talk about this enough, though. I'm going to crap on Canales in a couple minutes. I'm going to tell you why I don't think it was his best game of the season. I think he made some mistakes. You know who had a really good game, especially in the second half? Ejiro Evero. I think Ejiro Evero killed it. He had that big play. So the Falcons are driving, sort of. Penix is still in the game. And it's the first drive of the second half for them. So they had the fumble on the kickoff, gave the ball back to the Panthers. The Panthers turn it over on downs, and then Atlanta comes back. It's, I believe, a third down, and Evero calls the best schemed blitz I've seen all season. And it was super timely. I think it was like a 3rd and 10. Penix had no idea. He had no clue Moehrig was coming. Moehrig ended up injuring Penix on the play, which I think Falcons fans might say was the turning point in the game, because Kirk Cousins looked cold. He looked like a guy who was out there just collecting a check. Free rider Kirk Cousins. Just here for the clipboard. Just here for the paycheck. He's like the GPA guy on the college team. You know, I had a friend. He played D1 basketball. He wasn't there for talent. He was there because he had a 4.0 GPA. He was carrying the arithmetic. He was good at crunching the numbers in the classroom. That's why he was on the court. And Kirk Cousins is a similar grifter on the Falcons bench. He wasn't ready to go in. Maybe that's why they lost. You know why I think the Falcons slowed down? Ejiro Evero. He cleaned it up. Bijan Robinson, 75 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. He was a non-factor in the second half. Drake London, 5 catches for 108 yards in the first half. Non-factor. I think 14 yards total in the second half. Actually, 11 yards total in the second half for Drake London. Non-factor. Bijan Robinson, Drake London completely shut down the Falcons as a whole. 90 yards of offense, 2 field goals, and a fumble on special teams in the second half. You completely shut them down. It was similar to that game against Miami, where the only play Miami made in the second half was a 46-yard touchdown to Waddle. Besides that, you shut them out. Similar dynamic with the Falcons. Yes, their quarterback got injured. Yes, they're probably going to use the caveat, the asterisk. If we had Michael Penix, we would have won. Acting like Michael Penix wasn't 12 of 28 last week, holding his team back from beating the Colts. Either way, I think Evero looked good. I think in the first half, Derek Brown did not look great. It might have been his worst game all season. There was one play. It was the backup guard. I forgot. It's not Lindstrom. It's the guy on the other side. Just locking Derek Brown one-on-one. And I almost like... I thought I saw my superhero die in front of me. Like, I'm like, you know, I have Iron Man in front of me, Tony Stark, and like the suit comes off. And next thing you know, it's like just like a shriveled up dude in there. And you're like, oh, what? Like, this is the guy saving us? What? For a minute, that's how Derek Brown looked on Sunday. You're like, oh, it's not Iron Man. It's just Tony Stark. It's just this rich guy. Like, oh, he's not a sick, ironed out freaking superhero. He's just like some random dude who has a lot of money. Like, ugh. And Derek Brown maybe lost the cape for a minute there in the first half. But they figured it out, and they shut that team down. Imagine being a Falcons fan, because that team's super talented. I actually kept the quote here, because every game I take my notes, and then I write the storylines down, and I do that at halftime, too. I just try to see what's going on and write it down to make sure that I'm capturing all the details. And I go, the Falcons are more talented and faster than the Panthers. They're winning. Oh my gosh. Look at the changing of the guard in the NFC South. It's not the Bucs and the Panthers. It's the Falcons and the Bucs. And honestly, on paper, I think the Falcons are still much more talented. That pass rush they have is legit. They were there all day knocking on the door. That James Pierce Jr., oh my gosh, he's like I say this as a compliment. Like, I don't think a human being is supposed to contort their body that way. Like, it's like he's so long, yet he's sort of like a transformer. He's like Optimus Prime. When he lines up, he kind of pushes his body weight, gets a really low center of gravity, and then he's like, I'm Optimus Prime, and just transforms and gets right back by a Kemikwanu. Super fast, super lengthy. You see why he's a first-round talent. And maybe some of the players that you took, Scorton and Umamielen, for example, aren't. I think the first round, second round, I'm not saying Scorton's going to be worse than Pierce Jr. I'm just telling you that physically that guy is a freaking beast. Like, it's like, I've never seen a player built like him. He reminds me of Leonard Floyd, but even more physically gifted than Floyd. And then Jalen Walker, obviously, on the other side. Money talks. They went out and got 2 first-round pass rushers. They still need some work at linebacker, but that secondary is really good. I think Bowman and Xavier Watts. Xavier Watts had a really good game the first time against the Panthers. This time it was Bowman who was featured, especially on those blitzes. We're going to talk about what Chandler Zavala did. Oh, my gosh. Against Bowman, missing the block that resulted in Bryce Young's ankle injury. But that's a dynamic defense, a talented offense with a really good pass catcher and a really good running back. Bijan Robinson's a freaking beast. And you made them non-factors. And if I'm a Falcons fan, I'm pissed. Because I look at Bryce Young and I go, really? We're giving up 450 yards to this guy and now our season is shot because we're 0-2 to Bryce Young and the Panthers? Are you effing kidding me? Oh, that's fireable for that entire Falcons coaching staff. All right, here's Dave Canales. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the vertical passing game. Dave Canales had this to say about the game plan. Was it different this week against Atlanta? Here's Dave Canales.
It really is about the guys and the work that they've been putting in. And I think I've mentioned before, I'm seeing the improvement in practice. I'm seeing the chemistry happen. And for whatever reason, that hasn't showed up in the game. And today we found great rhythm. And it's not always pretty. And there were some dirty pockets, but the offensive line, did an admirable job of giving Bryce time and Bryce Spot a little bit of time to find guys down the field. And it just takes a couple of plays, and the guys feel the juice and the confidence to continue to go.
Canales pretty much telling you, clear as day, the issue has been the quarterback. It's not the game plan. It's not the freaking play calling. It's, does the quarterback get the ball to the open receiver? He says it there, going through his progressions, spreading the wealth around. Is he finding the wide receiver? Because there's plays to be had. It's not some magical game plan that gets Jalen Coker open and Xavier Legette and T-Mac opportunities. There's opportunities there. He even uses the words, I don't need to call the perfect play every time, which is sort of like, hey, Bryce, knocking on the door here at your coach. I can't make magic happen with the play calling. Eventually, you're going to need to step up and make a play. Eventually, you're going to need to make the throw. And Bryce Young did today. And I know the people on the extreme sides of the argument, there's probably 10% of people who are pro-Bryce no matter what, 10% of people who are anti-Bryce no matter what. If I'm an anti-Brycer, what I'm saying is, well, Natrone Brooks was 5 yards behind the nearest wide receiver on every single play. To which I say, yes, Young still evaded pressure. Young still moved back there. He took a couple sacks. He wasn't perfect, but he moved well. He moved better than he has all season. And you know what? He didn't do that thing where he runs the ball for a gain of 3 yards. He didn't play conservatively. In Canales' words, what Young did, he took advantage. He found the guy in man-to-man coverage. He found the guy downfield. And maybe they were open, but he was pushing it downfield, actively looking downfield all game. All game. And another thing I think that Bryce Young did really well was he knew exactly how to attack the blitz. A couple of times he got caught. Yes, one time I think it was Zavala's fault. But that play on the first drive where I think it was a third down. I have it in front of me. It was third down on the first drive. And there is a blitz. Young's facing it. He gets the ball to JT Sanders, picks up the first down. Didn't fold, stood in the pocket. I think he took a pretty big hit. Just got the ball to JT Sanders. Over, it's done. And the Falcons did a lot of what the Saints did. And a lot of what other teams are probably going to do to you for the rest of the season. Which is get after the quarterback. This guy that in week 1 and week 2, Bryce Young, failed against the blitz, turned the ball over, folded, did really poorly against the blitz. Let's blitz him. Today, the Falcons brought the heat. I mean, they could get after the quarterback rushing 4. Don't get me wrong. But they also schemed some blitzes. And he generally cleaned it up and looked pretty good. He generally looked pretty good. And that's with his play caller having a boneheaded game. I was ready to rip Dave Canales. My first 5 minutes of this show was going to be dedicated to ripping him. I cannot believe that he had Chandler Zavala in that game. What a crap show. What a freaking crap show. You don't have a better option than Chandler Zavala, who every single time he's in the game, something bad happens. It's like reverse Midas. Instead of everything turning to gold, everything he touches, he turns to crap. And that is what happens every time. They need to get him out of there. They had options. Austin Corbett, Curran, I don't care. And it almost bit them in the butt. That Billy Bowman sack early in the game that injured Bryce Young's ankle. Bryce Young screaming in Chandler Zavala's ear like, hey, block that guy. He's coming. Everyone knew it. I think the broadcasters even called it out like, he is coming on a blitz right now. Bryce Young goes up, whispers in his ear. Zavala's like, okay. And they end up double teaming the interior defensive lineman there. Bowman has a free run at Bryce Young. He's shot out of a cannon and he hurts the quarterback. And then there was that play at the end of the game where Zavala just steps on Bryce Young's ankle and Bryce Young falls down and they turn it over on downs. Everything that this guy does, it ends up backfiring. It is unbelievable with Chandler Zavala. And I'm not even blaming him for stepping on Bryce Young's foot. I think that was just a freak thing. But that's how bad it is. It's like, it's so bad when he's out there that it's not even explainable. It's like unnaturally bad. It's like that, what do they call it? Skinwalker Ranch, that alien farm. It's like when people are there, they just go missing magically. People end up in a ditch and you have no idea what happens. It's just some aliens, or it's like some guy gets abducted onto an airplane and it's like you never see him again. That's what happens when Chandler Zavala is on the field. It's magically insane. It's unexplainable. I'm done. I'm done. We need another guy. And you have options, Dave. You could have put freaking Austin Corbett out there, and instead you're trying to give Zavala an opportunity to compete for a job. In his words, that's what Dave Canales said on Friday. It's a freaking joke. It was a terrible decision. I can't believe we're letting him get away with that. That's unbelievable. Another bad decision by Dave Canales. And I'm going to rip the coach. I've given the coach credit all season. I've given Dave Canales credit all season. So I'm going to rip him today because I think he deserves it. That end of a half timeout, Bijan Robinson has like 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's killing you. He's freaking killing you. And Dave Canales calls a timeout at the end of the half and lets them run one more play. Next thing you know, they hand it off to Bijan, and he almost rips it loose for a touchdown. I have no idea what he was doing there. People are like, oh, it's gamesmanship because the Falcons called a timeout before, so now Dave Canales is going to call a timeout because that's what these coaches do, and they're effing with each other, and they're always trying to prove it's a hog measuring contest. Who has the biggest hog? Who has the biggest one? Are you smarter than me? No, I'm smarter than you. I'm going to call a timeout here because I know that you're trying to make me look stupid with your timeout, so I'm going to use my timeout on you and make you look dumb. It was just so stupid. And everyone's sitting there watching the sequence. Just like, can I go and like order DoorDash? Can I go and heat up the frozen pizza? Like, can I just go and get out of here? Instead, they're dinking around with these timeouts. Dave Canales plays down to the competition, calls his timeout. Bijan Robinson almost kills him with a freaking 50-yard touchdown to end the half. Oh, it was close. They got lucky. I think it was Morig, who was the last defender there, pushed him out of bounds. It was freaking close. And Bijan Robinson was on the sideline. Like, he's freaking massive. That guy is, if you built a my player to play running back, it'd be Bijan Robinson. He's sitting there on the sideline just flexing like, oh, I knew. I had him, man. Oh, man, I had him. He knew he had him. He almost did, too. And, Canales. Jeez. And then honorable mention, going for 2 points there in the second half. You didn't need to do it. You could have just taken the 1. You could have gone for 2 later. That's less important, but I don't think you needed to go for 2. I think that was not something that bit them in the butt. The game didn't get high scoring enough for that, but it could have. I think they would have been better off just taking the points and moving on. I want to touch on this last point too, which is, you know why it's not the play calling? You know why? This was the moment that I realized it. When Bryce Young hit those swing passes to Rico Dowdle, in the second half, you had 1 for 15 yards. You had 1 for 28 yards. It almost was 40 for a touchdown. So you haven't been able to do these swing passes. I hate it. Because I'm like, how many times do they call the swing pass and does it get eaten up in the backfield? I've probably mentioned it on this show 50 times. I go, I'm so done with the swing pass. Today it worked. You know why it worked in the second half? It didn't work in the first half. I have the numbers here. They had 3 for 5 yards at one point in the first half. You know why it worked in the second half? Because the offense got going. Because Bryce Young was throwing it down the field. Because they were forced to respect the pass. They were forced to respect anything over 10 plus yards. Bryce Young had a really good day throwing it down the field. Had a really good day too with those intermediate routes. The Panthers wide receivers were getting open. They were making it work. Next thing you know, Dowdle slips open underneath. Dowdle's open on a swing pass. It's not going to be that way when you can't throw the ball down the field. That's been the case all season. Today it finally works. And Dave Canales, he sits there with his arms crossed and goes, I told you this dumb swing pass would work. I told you it would work. I told you it was the quarterback. These are schemed in, and they only work if the quarterback's working. Another reason the play calling is a little overrated in all of this. Let's talk about this. Here's Dave Canales on what he expects to see moving forward from defenses and what Atlanta showed today.
Yeah, just understanding that our run game has been a strong suit for us, and teams are making concessions for that, knowing that we have to be able to be a balanced attack, that if they're going to make it hard with loaded up boxes, crowded line of scrimmages, blitzes, those are all the things that we saw today. And we were able to find some windows and some completions, to complement that part of it. And, in the back of my mind, it's like, can we get a lead, get into our run game, and have this thing finish as a balanced thing? We weren't able to do that, so we had to throw it a little bit more to give ourselves a chance, and the guys came together and allowed us to execute that.
6-5, they're in it. They're in it. A half game behind the Bucs. They're right in this thing. They're right in this thing. They're still in this thing. They keep hanging around, and it's awesome. It's freaking awesome. It's still on Bryce Young. It's still on Bryce Young. Now, was this game fool's gold? I don't know. I think Bryce Young did do a lot of different things that he hasn't done all season. So even though he performs well against the Falcons, and it's usually really good against the Falcons for the Panthers quarterback, I think spreading the field, his performance against the blitz, I think all of those things he hasn't shown all season. He hasn't taken advantage of the blitz. He hasn't thrown the ball down the field. He had a game that was unlike any other game this season. And yes, you can say Natrone Brooks was falling down and wasn't anywhere near the Panthers pass catchers and the receivers were wide open. Yes, I give you that. I still think he played pretty well. I still think in spite of that, he played well and he showed stuff. On the first drive of the game, he goes Sanders for 7 yards. Coker for 15. Leggett for 21. Those guys haven't seen consistent receptions all season. He was spreading the field. You're getting Coker involved, getting Leggett involved. In the second half, the first drive, Young starts with a beautiful throw to Coker, and then he comes back and hits Leggett for the 36-yard touchdown. He was spreading the ball around all game long. I think that has to do with Young. He wasn't fixated on T-Mac like he's been in past games. They weren't T-Mac dependent. And guess what? For that same reason, T-Mac had his best game of the season. It's like, oh, you can go to other players now? You can throw the ball downfield? Well, that hitch route to T-Mac opens up in the second half. You get a first down doing that. You find T-Mac underneath one time, and he was electric after the catch today. He had space. He was awesome after the catch. Hasn't really shown that all season. Picked up a lot of yards after the catch. I think the best play I saw all game was T-Mac's in-route adjustment. So the rush is getting to Young. Young scrambles out. T-Mac was in the slot, and they have Caden Ellis on T-Mac. So it was a genius game plan play by Canales, putting T-Mac in the slot. As soon as I saw him in the slot, I'm like, oh, this is a touchdown. I knew it was going to happen because they didn't do that. They didn't give him that look all day. They saved it, and then they had T-Mac in the slot, and Caden Ellis is on him, and that was a mistake, yes, by the Falcons, but Young is sort of scrambling around back there, moving around, and T-Mac breaks off the route and sits in the lower corner of the end zone, and they get the touchdown. They haven't had that level of improvisation all season. They haven't been able to do that. And I know Caden Ellis is a linebacker. He's not supposed to be on T-Mac in the first place. I give Young and T-Mac credit for that because I think that is what they need to do, especially on these broken plays against pass rushes or whatever. They need to be able to improvise. And I think what Canales thinks about Young and the receiving corps generally is these guys don't improvise enough. Everything needs to be scripted. I need to be holding their hands all the time. And that's partly because you have a developmental receiving corps. You have young receivers, inexperienced receivers, yes. The quarterback should be elevating them a little bit more. But in that same breath, the receivers can help the quarterback. That's true in this league. That's true. Today, the receivers had their best game all season. Today, the receivers looked really good fundamentally. Knowing when to break off routes, setting their quarterback up for success. So independent of Young, I think that's a really good sign because maybe they can build on that. And look, this is a team that previous to this point, so take this game out of the conversation. If Young makes 7 20-plus yard throws, the same number of throws he made today, 20-plus yards, this is a team that probably has 3 losses. 2 or 3 losses. If he's able to make a couple big throws like that, they're right in this thing. They're right in this thing. Maybe leading the South right now, honestly. What they have to clean up on defense, though, is the 20-plus yard passes because they got burnt a couple times early in the game. I'm like, how the heck is this happening again? The Saints ripped off the big 50-yard throw to Juwan Johnson. Olave had a couple big catches. Drake London was running wide open. I think 2 plays for 71 yards in the first half. What's going on with that? I'm going to need to go and watch the film to understand what's happening and why they're giving up these big plays to wide open wide receivers. Their best players wide open down the field. What's going on? Well, the Tone needs to go figure it out. This is the Tone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have more coming for you this week. So much more. I'm taking no days off. Come on. You think I'm taking days off? Heck no. Heck no, because I'm calling it. I'm predicting it. And I have to predict what's going to happen on Monday night. Panthers versus 49ers. Get ready for it. We're coming for you, Brock Purdy. Even though I want Mac Jones, he's funnier. This is the Tone.